Billionaire saw his father crying in the maid's arms. Then she revealed a shocking secret. "Get away from him, you filthy little roach." Meredith Voss's voice cracked like a whip through the grand atrium of the Whitmore estate. Outside, thunder rolled across the LA skyline. Inside, stormlight danced across marble floors, shaking crystal chandeliers. Elena Brooks, 32, a living maid, stood trembling yet unmoved, her arm curled protectively around the frail man behind her, shielding billionaire patriarch Harold Whitmore, 78, who clung to her uniform like a child lost in battle. Harold's health had declined sharply in recent months. He now barely spoke, his body thinned by Parkinson's and sorrow. But his eyes, those battle-scarred, steel-blue eyes, locked onto Meredith, his daughter-in-law, with haunted recognition. Meredith advanced in her silk gown, eyes ablaze, wine glass in hand. Her high heels clicked like threats across the marble. "He's not your father. He's a burden. And you?" She spat, glaring at Elena. "Or just a glorified mop with legs. Move." Elena's voice was soft but firm. "He asked me to stay," Harold whispered behind her, lips barely moving. "Please don't leave me." "I own this house," Meredith screamed. "I'm Richard's wife, and once he dies, I'll own everything else." Then she hurled the glass. Red wine and sharp crystal arced toward them. Elena turned, shielded Harold. The glass exploded against her arm. Blood, gasping, silence. From the far corridor, unseen, Richard Whitmore, the billionaire's son, had just walked in. He froze. His father was sobbing, the maid was bleeding, and his wife was smiling. If you're new to this channel, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss what happens next. And if you're one of our returning viewers, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Now, stay with us to the end of this story. Leave a comment with your thoughts and like this video if you believe in truth, loyalty, and justice. Let's continue. "Elena, what happened?" Richard's voice cut through the thick silence like a blade. He stepped further into the room, his $5,000 Oxford splashing through droplets of wine and blood. Meredith spun around like a snake caught mid-strike. Her tears came instantly, calculated, glistening. "Oh, thank God you're here, Richard." She attacked him. "Your father." She snapped like a rabid animal. "Look at the blood." Elena winced, pressing her sleeve against her arm, trying to stop the crimson streaks from dripping onto the rug. "That's not true," she whispered, breath trembling. She threw the glass. I protected him." "She's lying." Meredith shrieked. "She's always been manipulative, lingering around him like some vulture." "You gave her too much freedom." Richard's jaw clenched. "Dad," he crouched beside the old man, gently lifting his hand. Harold's fingers shook as they pointed toward Elena. "She saved me." But his voice was faint. So faint Richard barely heard. Meredith twisted the moment. "He's confused. He doesn't know what he's saying." Richard's gaze moved between his father, his wife, and the bleeding maid. He didn't know what to believe. I need space," he said, backing away. "Elena, please just leave the room." Her face broke. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered before turning, cradling her arm and disappearing down the long corridor. Richard watched her go, but something in his father's eyes kept haunting him. That night, the Whitmore estate felt colder than the thunderstorm outside. The marble halls, once symbols of legacy and power, whispered with servants' gossip. Elena's name passed between them like a curse. Some were skeptical, others too afraid to speak. "She crossed Mrs. Whitmore," a butler murmured. "She crossed the line," another whispered. Elena sat alone in the servants' quarters, her forearm wrapped in gauze, her spirit unraveling. Her phone buzzed with messages from her sister back in Atlanta, pleading for updates on their mother's cancer treatment. But she had nothing left to say. Her job, her income was hanging by a thread. At the same moment, upstairs in the master suite, Meredith lay nestled beside Richard. Her tears had dried. Her voice was, "Honey again. She needs to go," she murmured. "We can't have staff making threats in our home." Richard said nothing, but his mind kept flashing back to the moment. Harold's fingers trembling, pointing at Elena. The next morning, Richard summoned Elena to his study. She entered slowly, stiff from sleep and fear. "Elena," Richard said, avoiding her eyes. "You've crossed the line. I don't know what happened exactly, but there's too much confusion, too much risk. Please." Her voice broke. "Mr. Whitmore, I would never hurt him." Richard raised a hand. "Enough. You're dismissed. Effective immediately." Her world collapsed. She nodded barely and whispered, "Tell him goodbye for me." Then she turned and walked away, shoulders straight but broken inside. As the front door clicked shut behind her, Harold called out from upstairs, "Elena." But there was no reply, only the quiet echo of a truth still buried in silence. The sun had barely risen when Richard found himself unable to sleep. He stood alone in the mansion's security room, bathed in the cold blue glow of surveillance monitors. Footage flickered from hallway cameras, silent, unforgiving. He scrolled back to the previous day. There, the wine glass, the throw, the impact. He froze the frame. Meredith's arm in mid-swing, Elena's body shielding Harold. Blood already blooming through fabric. Rewind. Play again, again, and again. Richard's face drained of color. He leaned on the edge of the console, hands trembling. She had told the truth. Meredith had lied. His father was nearly struck by a glass projectile, and Elena took the hit for him. And he had banished her, cast her out like trash. His shame burned hotter than any storm. Down the hall, Harold sat by the window, wrapped in a shawl, silent. When Richard entered the room, the old man turned slowly. "I saw the footage," Richard said, voice thick with guilt. "She protected you." "I was wrong." Harold's lips parted and tears welled in his faded eyes. "I begged you to see her," he whispered. "I begged you." "I know," Richard said, kneeling beside him. "I see her now, but I need to fix this. I need to make it right." Harold's voice cracked. "Then go find her before it's too late." Later that evening, Richard's black Maserati pulled up to a modest diner in East Hollywood. And there she was, Elena, sitting alone in a booth by the window, her arms still wrapped, her face turned to the rain. Richard's shadow fell across her table. She looked up stunned. "Elena," he whispered. Her hands gripped the mug. "I don't work for you anymore, Mr. Whitmore." Richard slid into the booth. "Then let me speak to you, not as your employer, but as a man who failed you." Elena sat frozen across from him. The dull clink of her spoon in the mug, the only sound between them. Rain smeared the diner windows like ghostly fingers. "I saw everything," Richard said softly. "The cameras, they captured it all. I was wrong. I should have believed you." Elena's lips quivered. "That's not something you can take back, Mr. Whitmore." "I know," he said, "but I can start making it right." He reached into his coat and slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "A new contract, full reinstatement, triple salary, private medical coverage for your mother in Atlanta, and you'll have your own suite near my father's room." Elena blinked hard, shoulders tightening. "Why now?" "Out of guilt." "No," Richard said firmly. "Because my father trusts you, and because I finally understand why." She hesitated. "You don't know everything," he tilted his head. "Then tell me." Her eyes clouded. "There are things about your father, about your family that you don't know." Richard leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "I can't say. Not here. Not yet, Elena." She shook her head. "Let me come back. Let me care for him. But not just as a maid, as someone who's protected a secret for nearly 3 decades. Richard studied her, something stirring deep in his chest. "This isn't just about the wine glass, is it?" Elena's voice lowered. "No, not even close." She slowly stood up, the contract in hand. "I'll come back. But you're not ready to hear the rest yet." As she turned to leave the diner, Richard whispered, "Will I ever be?" Elena paused just long enough to answer without looking back. "You will be when the truth is ready." The Whitmore estate gleamed in the morning sun, but its pristine marble floors felt colder than ever. Elena stepped through the grand entrance, not as a maid, but as Harold Whitmore's official caregiver. Her simple black coat clashed against the opulence, her expression calm but unreadable. The staff paused mid-task, trays stilled, eyes darted, whispers rippled like a current. "She's back." "I thought she was fired." "Meredith won't like this." But Meredith was gone. Richard had made it clear in the staff meeting that his wife had left indefinitely and would not be returning. Still, some eyes narrowed, others averted. Only one person smiled at Elena. A quiet dishwasher named Natalie, who gave her a small nod of support. Elena nodded back and headed toward the east wing. When she opened the door to Harold's room, he was already sitting upright, dressed and waiting. His eyes lit up. "Elena," he whispered. She walked over and took his hand. "I told you I'd come back," she said gently. He nodded, tears brimming. "I never doubted it, not for a second." Later that afternoon, Elena passed through the hallway toward the kitchen. Conversations halted as she walked by. One maid sneered just loud enough. "Sleeping your way into promotion now? Huh?" Elena paused but didn't respond. Another voice followed. "It's not over, you know." Not with her gone. Someone else will want her place. She kept walking. That night, as she helped Harold into bed, he looked at her and said, "You'll need thicker skin than you ever imagined. They'll come for you." "I've survived worse," she replied. "You've held worse, too," he said, looking directly into her eyes. "Don't carry this one forever." But Elena said nothing because the worst burden was still buried inside her. A secret that would either save or destroy the man she was learning to trust. 3 days after Elena's return, the Whitmore household was slowly adjusting. But the silence beneath the marble echoed louder than ever. Richard kept his distance, watching Elena from afar. She moved like someone carrying more than trays and medications, like someone with history tucked inside her silence. In the city, whispers had begun leaking from Meredith's social circles. Her abrupt disappearance had raised questions. At a garden fundraiser in Beverly Hills, a real estate agent muttered to a gossip columnist, "He caught her in something. I don't know what, but it's serious." By noon the next day, Richard's attorney slid a manila folder across his desk. Bank statements, property transfers, a trust fund withdrawal made without authorization. Meredith had forged Harold's signature. Richard stared at the documents, rage simmering under his calm surface. "She was stealing from my father." The attorney nodded and laundering it through a private account in Barbados. Richard stood abruptly. "Get the estate lawyer. I want the will updated today, and I want Meredith barred from all future legal access." Meanwhile, back at the mansion, Harold's condition worsened. Elena noticed the change immediately. His pulse weakening, his hands clammy. By late evening, he was struggling to breathe. Richard rushed in to find Elena crouched by the bed adjusting an oxygen mask. "What happened?" Elena's voice was steady, his heart. "It's tired." Harold reached up, his voice barely a rasp. "Elena, if I don't make it, tell him." She froze. "No, sir. Not yet. Not like this." Richard stepped closer. "Tell me what?" Harold's hand dropped, unconscious now, monitors beeped. Elena looked up, eyes damp. "There's more," she whispered. "Much more. But if I tell you now, it won't just change your life." She paused, trembling. "It will destroy everything you believe about yourself." Harold remained unconscious into the next day. Monitors hummed in quiet rhythm. Richard stood beside the bed, arms crossed tightly, while Elena sat at Harold's side, gently wiping his forehead with a damp cloth. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Richard broke the silence. "Elena, what did my father mean? Tell him." She hesitated. Her hands trembled. Her eyes searched his. "He meant the truth he's been carrying for 30 years, she said softly. "A truth I promised him I'd never speak unless he couldn't." Richard narrowed his eyes. "Truth about what?" Elena looked away, her voice almost a whisper. "You?" He froze. "What about me?" She stood and walked slowly to the window, gazing out over the estate grounds. "I was barely 19 when I started here," she began. "Your mother, Meredith, wasn't the first Whitmore woman to wield cruelty like a blade. Your father was distant back then, lonely, tired of lies." Richard's stomach tightened. "What lies?" Elena turned to face him fully now, her voice cracking. "The lie about who your mother really was, about what she did, about who you are." "Stop speaking in riddles," Richard snapped. Stepping forward, she held up a trembling hand. "I'm not trying to hurt you, but when Harold met me, when he trusted me, he told me something in a moment of weakness, something no man should have to carry alone." Richard's voice dropped to a whisper. "Elena, who am I?" She shook her head slowly. "Not yet. Not while he's unconscious. He deserves to be awake to say it himself." Richard's breath grew shallow. "You're telling me I've lived a lie?" Tears slid down Elena's cheeks. "I'm telling you, the name on your birth certificate might not be the name of the man who fathered you." Richard staggered back like he'd been punched. Silence swallowed the room. The room was dim, shadows stretching long across the polished wood floors. The air hung thick with tension and unspoken questions. Richard sat in the corner, head in his hands, the weight of Elena's words like an anchor on his chest. Elena stood by the bed, watching Harold's chest rise and fall, steady now, but still fragile. Then a stir, a groan. Harold's eyes fluttered open, his breathing shallow but stable. "Sir," Elena whispered, leaning close. "He's here." Richard looked up, eyes red-rimmed, jaw clenched. "I need answers now." Harold's gaze shifted from Elena to his son. No, the man he'd raised as his son. He sighed, his voice like rusted metal. "You always said you were ready for truth, Richard, but no one ever is." "Am I your son?" Richard asked, The silence hung for a moment too long, then Harold nodded slowly, painfully. You are my son in every way that matters. But biologically, no. Richard stumbled back, breath leaving him in one violent gust. What? Who? Harold's voice cracked. Your mother, she lied. She had an affair with my own brother. I found out when you were 5, but by then I already loved you more than my own life. I swear I'd raise you as mine because you were mine. Richard's eyes filled with tears, hands shaking. Elena blinked, lips trembling. Later in Harold's room, she stood by the window as Richard entered. He handed her a sealed envelope. What's this? She asked. My father added your name to the foundation's future board. You helped carry his legacy when we didn't deserve you. She opened it, and inside was a check for $2 million. Tears filled her eyes. I don't need this. Richard smiled. You earned it. Not for what you did, but for what you endured. She walked over to Harold, who reached for her hand. You're home now, soldier, he said with a smile. And for the first time in years, the house felt warm again. Not because of wealth or power, but because truth finally had a place at the table. If this story touched your heart, if you believe truth, loyalty, and quiet sacrifice deserve to be honored, then please like this video and share it with someone who still believes in doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Because sometimes the people we overlook carry the heaviest truths. Why didn't you tell me? Harold looked toward Elena. Because I was afraid you'd hate me. I didn't want to lose you. Elena stepped in, voice gentle. He only told me when he grew sick. He needed someone to know, someone he trusted. And all these years, Richard murmured, I thought Meredith's betrayal was the worst thing that could happen to me. Harold smiled weakly. It wasn't betrayal, it was protection. Richard fell to his knees beside the bed, tears falling freely now. I don't care who gave me blood, he said. You gave me everything else. Harold nodded. Then let's start again with truth this time. The next morning, sunlight broke over the Whitmore estate, casting warm gold across the ivy-lined mansion. But inside the walls, something deeper had changed. Richard stood at the head of the long dining table, once used for silent dinners and empty toasts. Now it was filled with the estate's full staff, from butlers to dishwashers, from cooks to groundskeepers. All eyes were on him, and beside him stood Elena. Harold sat in a wheelchair near the fireplace, a blanket over his lap, dignity restored in the light of truth. Richard's voice was steady. Many of you have heard whispers, many of you saw injustice. Today, those whispers end. He turned to Elena. This woman saved my father's life. She was lied about, attacked, and cast out. And he paused, voice cracking, believed the wrong person, but no more. He faced the staff again. Elena Brooks is no longer staff. She is family. Gasps rippled across the room. Richard continued. I've revised the estate documents. Should anything happen to me, Elena is to oversee my father's care, this estate's moral integrity, and the Carter Foundation's expansion. He met the eyes of each staff member. If anyone disrespects her or questions her place here, you answer to me. The staff fell into stunned silence.